Alright guys, I wanted to make this video on the basis of the Tampa Bay Lightning without Steven Stamkos. How are we going to deal with this injury? In particular, you know, not only is he our franchise player, but he's not like San Jose's franchise player without Joe Thornton. This is without Steven Stamkos. This is not only, how is the Lightning without Steven Stamkos? This is not just a franchise player, but he's an NHL player. He's somebody that you can market the game around. He's not just an ordinary franchise player like a Joe Thornton or a Rick Nash. No offense to those guys, but he's legitimately competition for Sidney Crosby for the best player in the league. And up until today, you could actually legitimately compare those two as who's the best. Granted, the edge goes to Sidney Crosby, but the point remains. From everything from sniping goals, he was the best sniper in the league, bar none. Like, you give him the puck and he was more dangerous of letting go of that shot than anyone else in the league. I would imagine, granted I'm a Bulls fan, but I would imagine if I was a fan of, of Boston, Pittsburgh, Montreal, the Leafs, I saw Stamkos get the puck and I'm just crossing my fingers hoping he doesn't shoot. and honestly, that brings up the question is, how do we replace Steven Stamkos? Well, there's a simple and there's a long answer to that. The simple answer is you don't. You just don't replace him. You can't. He is the best in the league for the reason, and you're not going to replace the Steven Stamkos. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately. So, on a very simplistic terms, honestly, it's going to as far as centers, number of centers. Well, honestly, you're probably going to have to move somebody over from a wing to a center position. A good candidate for that would be Alex Killorn. He's played center in the past. I believe he played center mainly in Harvard. He was mainly a center. So I could see him moving over from wing to center. Also, another theory is moving him up. Pyatt, he's played center. He's probably going to be coming back relatively. Well, actually, no, he's going to be gone for probably about another month or so. But when he comes back, you have to move him over to center, have him center the fourth line, move Thompson up to the third. Tyler Johnson, you move him up to the second. And Valtteri Filppula, you move him up to the first. And, well, that's also another thing that brings up another question is, Tyler Johnson, is he ready for that extra step? Because, well, quite frankly, losing Steven Stamkos, next thing you know, it's everyone has to bring on that main responsibility. You can't take 50 or 60 goals away from a team and expect it to be filled by one guy. It just doesn't happen. And so it's a community effort. And one of the guys we can look on to take on an extra 10 15 goals, we're not look on to take on an extra 10 15 goals even by himself, would be a guy like Tyler Johnson. He's a good two-way centerman. He wins face-offs like crazy. He's a sniper in his own right. Granted, he's not a Steven Stamkos sniper, but who in the hell is? But he's a sniper in his own right. We've seen this guy get the puck and look at a corner and shoot for it. And 9 times out of 10, he gets it where he wants to. He has that quick release. He's a prototypical sniper. Like, this kid could fucking shoot the puck. And so in the future, I can honestly see us, and then the last couple games especially, he's came out to me as this kid got some speed to him. He has room to burn. He skates his ass off, and that's a kid, honestly, I could see legitimately making that next step as far as going from that third line center that's mainly typically used as our energy line. And I think Cooper's trying to mold that more as, Lightning rolling out with 3 scoring lines instead of the 2 scoring lines, the energy and then the grinding line. I see him, what he's trying to do is he's trying to mold that into 3 scoring lines and then have that energy / grinding line as a 4th. And honestly, this could be a huge opportunity as Tyler Johnson. And honestly, as him as a player, I can honestly see him chomping at the bit, like, Coach, let me get it, let me get that chance, And he has the talent, to do that, to become a legit top 2 guy, top 2 center guy, and he can theoretically pot 20 to 25 goals on his own, and he has the talent to do so, and maybe even 30. Another option comes the big question is, we now have a huge hole in our lineup, and Eisman is probably going to call somebody up. Probably is. I mean, honestly, if I was Eisman, I would. And so, who do we call up? Well, option number 1. And I don't necessarily put this as a priority list of who we're calling up, but I'm just going with the first option for dramatic reasons. Option number 1, Vladimir Nemestikov. Kid we drafted a few years ago. We drafted him a late first rounder. I think he was like 27th overall, 28th overall, off the top of my head. Not even looking at it. Kid's having a hell of a year. This is a year that we specifically approached him and said, hey, look, we're pretty much gutting the Syracuse Crunch this year, and you're pretty much responsible for picking up the pieces and taking charge of the offense. And he's done an admirable job. He's taken that first line center he's taken that responsibility. He's pretty much went with it. He's a great 2-way center. He's like a Datsuk light almost. He's very Datsukian in his play style. What I mean by it is that when he gets the puck, sometimes he'll just wow the living crap out of you. Like, he just like with his gameplay, but at the same time he doesn't do it as much as Datsuk, and I wouldn't expect him to be a Datsuk. Like, he's not going to be that top line center guy that can make people look like idiots left and right. But he'll occasionally, once in a while, he'll pull off that move where your jaw's going to hit the floor like, what the hell just happened? And at the same time, he'll play a very strong 2-way game. He'll be an offensive threat on one side of the ice, and on the second end of the ice, he'll play very, very strong defensively. And he'll make them earn every bit that they get. Like, he'll make them earn it. And so that is definitely, and he's posted a ridiculous amount of points. Sorry, pulling up the stats right now. And so, I mean, like, he's a guy that can theoretically be a presence offensively, and I can honestly see, he's paid his dues before. I think he played his rookie season, I think, was last year, and so this is his second year in. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up, so sorry about the long pause. Alright, he's third right now in the league. He's third right now in the AHL. With 13 games played, he has 7 goals and 12 assists. So he's definitely not so he's not shy of scoring goals. This kid is more of a playmaker than he is a goal scorer. He can move the puck, he can deke somebody right out of their shoes. I think basketball terms is he could break somebody's ankles if you let him. So he's very dangerous if you give him space. But now, as far as the dramatic entrances and the last bit of it is, who do I think is number one? And if I was Yzerman, what would I do to replace the Steven Stamkos? Not necessarily permanently, but just for the season. What would I do to help fill the gap? Very first thing I would do is I would look at a roster, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I would call up Nikita Kucherov. Bar none, he's a winger, so I would have to move somebody over to center-wise. Like I said, I mentioned earlier in the video, I would go after Alex Killorn, and I'd move him over to the center, possibly even to the first line, have him center the first line with Marty St-Louis on one wing and Nikita Kucherov on the other. This kid is the Russian version of Steven Stamkos. I hate to say it. He's probably not as good sniping is, but no one in the league is. But legitimately, in his own right, he can be a 40 or 50 goal scorer. This kid gets the puck, and immediately that puck's in the back of the net if he wants to be. He can score at a whim's notice from anywhere on the ice. He can pick his corners up probably with the best of them. You know, he is phenomenally dangerous. No one in the AHL pretty much has his speed. Like, his breakaway ability is just insane. If he decides, he gets the puck and he decides he wants to take off with it, honestly, you're going to be hard-pressed to find any defenseman in the NHL to keep up with this kid. This kid, he can deke with the best of them. He can shoot with the best of them. The problem is I don't think he has Stamkos' two-way ability, but you call him up and you give him a world-class winger to pass in the puck, a world-class dish person like Marty St-Louis. This kid can give us 40 goals before the end of the season. He can give us 35, 40 goals before the end of the season. And I'm not prorating it. He can give us 35 or 40 goals. He can, not saying he will. It's there's two words. There's a huge difference between those two words. So you're talking about a kid that went from junior last year to the NHL, and that's a huge gap. But at the same time, you know, the junior and the AHL, for example, and you can track down a lot of people that said this, that gone through that, is a huge jump in his own right. Well, he's second in the league in points in the AHL. As a rookie, he's second in the league in points. As a rookie, he's first by a large margin. I'll give you an example. Ryan Strome, he's a New York Islanders prospect, rookie. He's having a hell of a year for the New York Islanders, and he's probably, they're probably thinking about calling him up in their own right if and when he does finish the season. And he has, in 12 games played, he has 4 goals and 12 assists for 16 points. A hell of a prospect for the New York Islanders. And they're probably jumping through hoops right now, at this kid, like chopping at the bit, like pretty much salivating, putting him on, Tavares' wing. Well, Nikita Kucherov, 13 games played, 12 goals, 10 assists for 22 points. This kid is a goal scorer, bar none, and we have him. And I almost bet my last dollar Yzerman's going to call him up, because honestly, you can't replace Steven Stamkos, but if you're going to get close, it's going to be with a kid like Nikita Kucherov, and he's the closest thing we have to our system as to Steven Stamkos to replace. And honestly, he's our best bet. Altogether, I think John Cooper has done a hell of a job coaching our team. We have the same team that was in the bottom 3 last year. Guy Boucher had a choice of every single one of those guys on the roster up until now. That Guy Boucher had the same choice of choosing. And John Cooper made the same choice of the same amount of guys, the same guys, and right now we were at the top of our conference up until pretty much at the top of our conference. So he's done a hell of a job especially with this young team. This team is incredibly young, and honestly, we've only had the tip of our iceberg. And I think in the long run, this adversity, obviously adversity sucks at the start of it, but if you can climb through it, it can be a great thing. And honestly, this team last year was pretty much an NHL team last year, and this was the team that went to the finals against the Grand Rapids last season. And the season before that, they were the team that won the Calder Cup. And so now it's going to be the team as well. The biggest question is going to be is, are you an NHL playoff team? And that's a question asked to Tyler Johnson, Richard Panik, Andre Palat, Andre Suster, Mark Barberio, Radko Gudas. And that's the question directed at those guys is, are you a NHL playoff team? Stamkos will be back in about April-ish. So that's when the games are going to be very meaningful. It's going to be the tail end of the regular season. That's when we're going to be fighting for a playoff spot. Do I think we're going to be at the top of our conference? No, I don't. I don't think we're experienced enough. And do I think we're good enough? Yes, I do. I don't think we're experienced enough, and I think over the course of the NHL season, it's gonna bring a toll down to our kids, our team, and our kids in general. But the next question is, do I think we're a playoff team even without Steven Stamkos? Yes, I do. I think we are. I think we'll probably be fighting for the 6th to 8th spot. I think we'll be anywhere between the 6th to the 9th seed. Once Stamkos, towards the end of the season. And when Stamkos comes back, and if we're in the 6th to the 8th seed, and we somehow make it to the playoffs, and Stamkos comes back, and if we have an emergence of Nikita Kucherov and Tyler Johnson has proven himself that he's actually a legit second center in his own right, and Stamkos comes back on top of that, playoffs will get very, very interesting for us. And it'll be very fun to watch.